There is only one way to approach an understanding of Puck. You have to do the work. Be passive and it will pass you by. But do the work though, and you will be rewarded. Here is the origin in question, PQMZ. And here I am, Puck. I accept your challenge. Now, I'm not a poet. My medium is film, but it's a medium that transmits its message beautifully, with or without words. So here is an original poem, because some ideas can only be expressed in film. Isn't that poetic?
One thing that bothers me about the future is this. I really thought we'd have flying cars and hoverboards by now. But that's okay. There's lots of other cool things. Robots that can make cocktails and all the information in the universe at the end of one little finger. But I don't know. I kind of still want more. And now,
47 degrees, Roger.
you can have it.
47 degrees. Still looking very good. Here go.
We all live on one spinning ball of madness, pumping through the universe out of control, heading into the vast unknown. Or are we? Maybe no. Maybe we had one single vision, one dream, one plan to turn our ideas into reality. We focused our energy like Bruce Lee's one-inch punch, and yeah, we took a few shots, but Mr. Mathers said you only get one, and we're not gonna miss our chance. And like Miss Earhart's one flight across the Atlantic, we charged our engines and we flew.
Retro. Go. Rhino. Go. Go.
In a world full of dissonance, it's time for some harmony.
Roger, 12 on alarm.
Our adventure begins in 3, 2, 1.
For most people, I suspect Puck is an enigma, an inscrutable monochrome what the fuck verse where the puppet master is always ahead of you, pulling you forward and laughing with gusto as you trip over your feet. If that's you, fear not. For all the misdirection, showmanship, and constantly shifting narrative, there is very much method in the madness, and it's neither scary nor intimidating, but it is kind of breathtaking. So I hope that this series of films can serve as a kind of essential primer on the Puckverse to provide context and a framework for understanding his work. We'll go back in time, look at the early works and trace a line through the NFT collections, Terminus, Narcissus, X, the title, the Fungible, to the Lost Poets, by way of the Cassini missions, Baudrillard, Berger, and Obar. We'll hear from a collector, a curator, and a collaborator. So I hope you're sitting comfortably, because we're about to cover some serious ground, with art criticism pumping recklessly through my veins, and when Moon vanished firmly to the outhouse. This is The Defiant. A black circle on a white background. Simplicity itself. Puck is the nothing. Now we can read this as a zero, perhaps a simplistic interpretation, but it's enough for now. Puck's work is defined by an aesthetic of cleanliness and purity that has been expressed with impressive consistency throughout his recent work. This is the Puck signature, and its sparseness creates gaps for interpretation. Now this is the same kind of universe that Loot plays in, but whereas that project derives its energy from its participants, the Puckverse has always been enthralled to a singular creator, the Kukla Ustase, but not anymore. At least, well, that seems to be the plan, because something radical has happened in the evolution of Puck with his most recent drop, The Lost Poets. And yet nobody seems to have spotted it. Maybe they're too busy deciphering rarity MacGuffins, solving the puzzle directly in front of them, rather than stepping back to view the world from space. When retreating sufficiently far, we can reduce the world to a single pixel in the cosmos of our understanding, all meaning compressed into the smallest unit of artistic expression. And I want you to hold that idea in your mind as you contemplate this exchange between Puck and another great thinker of our time. An outlier is a data point in a data set that is distant from all other observations. Distance, space, voyaging into the unknown. Do you see it? Well, while you think on it, let's hear from our sponsors. Don't let high gas costs keep you out of Ethereum. A Balancer, the gas-optimized vault architecture, makes trading cheaper than anywhere else. Liquidity providers can optimize their fee earnings using the dynamic fee system that automatically adjusts to market conditions. You can also use asset managers to lend out idle assets, dramatically increasing your capital efficiency. Because Balancer is an open platform for flexible, automated markets, you can choose from stable pools or weighted pools. And in the future, more designs will be created that they don't even know about yet. Check it out at balancer.fi. Avalanche is a leading third-generation Layer 1 blockchain that has a flourishing ecosystem of more than 200 projects live, with over 100 in the pipeline as well. The latest launch of the Avalanche Rush DeFi incentive program is the largest to date of its kind, with flagship DeFi protocols like Aava, Curve, and Sushi leading the charge as they deploy on Avalanche. The Avalanche platform is fast, low cost, and super easy to use. If you're a DeFi user on Ethereum, you can quickly and easily move your assets over using the brand new Avalanche Bridge and can explore the ecosystem of dApps. Head to ecosystem.avax.network to get started today. Read any article about the artist and the journalist will always seize on the anonymity as a crucial piece of the narrative. A closely guarded secret, mysterious. Nifty Gateway describes Puck thus. Puck is an omniscient designer / developer / wizard. One of the leads of the design scene is the founder of Undream. Puck is currently at uncharted space, experimenting with new forms of creation and communication, discovering, learning, and teaching along the journey. It's a little clumsy, but I'll allow it. Pioneer, visionary, explorer. These are all words you'll hear in connection with Puck. He's a mystical presence. Now, one of Puck's greatest skills is an ability to straddle fine art, motion design, technology, architecture, and blockchain, both at the technical level, but also at the consensus level in the community. And that is not an easy trick to pull off. Puck is anonymous, but it doesn't take much Googling to find this. Now, is this the real Puck? There's a connection to Istanbul and that distinctive plaited ponytail. Someone in my office was researching this all morning and found a whole bunch of stuff. Does it matter? Not really. Certainly the artist is going to great lengths now to disguise their identity, even to those who work with him / her / they / them / it.
I have no idea if Puck is a man or a woman. We had a couple phone conversations while we were working together last year, but a voice modulator was used, so I was confused and entertained at the same time.
Puck has previously said, identity to me is similar to shouting, I am here. I try to do the exact opposite, which creates a social vacuum. Having no face and physicality helps me define myself with concepts rather than a face and a body. In the end, no one really knows which me is the actual me, which makes me smile and continue my journey. So really the question of Puck's identity might well be the very least important question we can ask. To continue our own journey, maybe we can learn more about the artist by going back to their early work. After all, there's a kind of irresistible energy that connects all of the crypto native work, one piece leading inexorably to the next, challenging, mocking at times, forcing you to think. So let's do some thinking ourselves. Hop in our time machine and go look at that early work. Back in the old days when Bitcoin was just a twinkle in Satoshi's eye, filmmakers used to share their work on a fledgling video platform called Vimeo and fight for the honor of being a staff pick. And Puck's work is still listed on there, like this graphic title sequence full of geometric architectural forms. Butterfly Messiah gives us a glimpse of what will later become the Puck signature style. monochrome, high contrast, rooted in geometric forms, but it's still early days. Am I a man dreaming I'm a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I'm a man? Reads the description, and this too is an early indicator of how the Pak voice will express itself on Twitter, and maybe a foreshadowing of where Pak himself or herself thinks they are going. It feels like a title sequence, like the one on The Crown, for instance, and it's undoubtedly beautiful, but Vimeo at the time was awash with films that looked exactly like this one. And it was a time when freshly empowered motion graphics designers were granted superpowers by the increasing sophistication of software like Maya or Cinema 4D. In other words, nothing remarkable. The music as well is twee, schmaltzy even. And in one of those weird quirks of fate, it was written by Ed Sheeran, a film composer whose early musical life included a stint as a chorister at Westminster Cathedral in London. And you know who else was a chorister at Westminster Cathedral in London? Yeah, me. Now, Butterfly Messiah wasn't a staff pick at Vimeo, but the Node, well, that was. And with the Node, we start to see the connection of data to imagery to thought to concept, and the emergence of Pak as a hybrid coder artist. When we look back at the Node, we can see that this is in fact the genesis of Pak, the crypto artist, 10 years ago, but still the genesis. And as before, there was a quote attached to the piece, just because quantum physics said so. There were 9 variations of the Node scored by a hand-picked selection of composers, and visually, it's more of the same. Mostly monochrome, indie sci-fi aesthetic, beautiful renders of architecture and geometric forms, a cube or a sphere, pulsating with inner life. But again, visually, nothing particularly remarkable. Vimeo at the time was full of stuff like this, with directors like Edouard Salier creating the most visually arresting and fated work of the time. But in hindsight, the most interesting detail of the Node lies in the opening inscription. A singularity is a place where matter is compressed down to an infinitely tiny point, and all conceptions of time and space completely break down. It doesn't really exist. The Penrose theorem predicts a gravitational singularity at the very center of all black holes. And Penrose developed that theory with Stephen Hawking to apply it to the universe as a whole. And they demonstrated that the universe itself contained one deep in its past from which all matter and energy emanated from. I am, of course, talking about the Big Bang. And at this point, I'm sure you're thinking, where is he going with this? Well, observe. Now, you might see a zero here, but I see a black hole. And interestingly, the term singularity is also used to refer to a hypothetical point in time at which technological growth becomes uncontrollable and irreversible, resulting in unforeseeable changes to human civilization. Now, generally, this is applied to the arrival of hyper-intelligent AI and all the nightmare scenarios that accompany it. When we think about lost poets, well, that suggests something. Interestingly, the Node is the first instance I can find of Pak's signature circle symbol. But don't worry, big ideas, and we'll come back to all of them later on. Let's return to something simpler, the back catalogue, where we find some really strange outliers like a pair of music videos for the Mighty Pendulum. But the next piece that stands out is Timekeeper, an interactive music experience. Here we see data, and we see the now signature Pak aesthetic, the silver tone monochrome, the indie sci-fi experience stripped back to something more truthful and imperfect. That was 8 years ago, and that style has been the guiding principle of all things Pak until April of this year, when I believe that phase of Pak's work was formally ended. Except nobody really realized, and nobody noticed, and nobody said anything. Again, we'll come back to this, but suffice it to say, this piece marks the start of Puck's first, what I would call, mature phase as a genuine artist. But to understand where all of that comes from, we have to time travel once again, all the way back to 1997.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff of the Cassini spacecraft on a billion-mile trek to Saturn.
Cassini-Huygens was a space research mission that lasted nearly 20 years, and in the process completely revolutionized our understanding of Saturn. Now, it's widely considered to be the most successful space mission of all time. The images of the ringed planet sent back by the tiny craft are arresting and awe-inspiring. They might also look somewhat familiar. If it wasn't already clear, Puck is deeply inspired by space travel and concepts that sit at the very limit of physics. And when Elon Musk dropped him an @ on Twitter, the admiration was clear. Cassini's final act after 20 years of service was to be deorbited and then burn up in Saturn's atmosphere, a burnt offering to the gods of science. The opening of X, which would later become a series of NFTs itself, is clearly deeply inspired by Cassini and the images it sent back. But that visual style carries through every drop, from Terminus with its clear echoes of the Note, to Narcissus, to the title, to the Fungible. The notable exception, or outlier, to this is the collaboration with Trevor Jones, The Collision. Here, Trevor's rich, traditional, painterly strokes are rendered as Rubik's cubes, vivid, colourful and rich. But what was that collaboration like?
And how did it come about? We'd had a couple DMs August of last year, and I think at one point I just came out and asked if, would you like to work with me on a collaboration? And it was, in fact, that contrasting styles and even online persona were just so completely different from each other. I thought like this could be something really, really amazing. I had no idea what would come about, but when they said yes, let's go for it, let's do it, I was super excited. It was almost 5 months of back and forth messages and sharing work and ideas though before it dropped. It wasn't a quick venture at all, and working with PAC, 100% the most challenging collab I'd ever been involved with, but also the most rewarding. We are so different. PAC is precise and decisive, logical, orderly, and exceptionally systematic, and I'm pretty much the opposite in all of that. So it made for some challenges, and I think it was hard for both of us. But again, that's what I expected, and to be honest, that's what I wanted. I learned so much from PAC, and I learned a lot as well about myself through this collaboration. I think that's what every artist should be striving for, is to work with people who really push you to develop and grow and to become a better artist.
When we think of the big figure NFT art sales of the last 18 months, there's always one name that is front of mind: Beeple. $69 million at Christie's, you can't get away from it. But nobody ever mentions Puck, which is weird because their numbers are equally, if not more, startling. For starters, he was the first NFT artist to realize $1 million in sales. Which seems oddly quaint now, of course, but it wasn't that long ago that $1 million, well, that was big time. And of course, now, big time is a much bigger number. And again, we stop at Beeple, but Puck sold 55,000 NFTs for 0.32 ETH, which was a cool $70 million, but nobody batted an eyelid. Well, that's not entirely true. One of the world's leading auction houses has been paying close attention for some time now, and they made Puck their first solo NFT artist sale. And what a sale it was. It was described as a novel collection of digital art redefining our understanding of value. And we'll come back to the Fungible because, in hindsight, it's clear that this was the closing act of this second phase of Puck the artist. But what's important here is to chart Puck's progress from an artist defined by technique to one defined by concept, execution, and stagecraft, and one who could only exist in the very specific conditions we find in blockchain. Park is an artist, but Park is also a coder. And code comes in many forms. It can generate, but it can also learn. And before coming to play games in blockchain art, Park created the Archilect, an AI curation tool that finds images it deems interesting or valuable to its audience and presents them without comment. 2.6 million followers and counting goes to show just how successful this experiment has been, especially since Archilect is blind. In a 2016 interview with journalist Ryan Melson, Park described Archilect as a trend getter, a bot to understand what on social media is able to get more likes. And in a blog on the Archilect website, they went further with this insight. With today's Archilect, the real potential behind the project is not the way Archilect Core picks images, but it's how the core can track social media ripples in a way that it's almost possible to see what will cause viral reach for the target audience. In other words, they can predict what will go viral. Think about that for a second. They can predict what will go viral. This is the holy grail of influencer marketing. And this dovetails with the MetaProfit, another social media experiment using lines from movies to generate random text for tweets that sort of almost not quite make sense, but the magic trick is not generating the content, it's whether or not it gets shared. Now, while not as avidly followed as the Archilect, we can draw two conclusions here. Firstly, Park has their hands on a savagely effective prediction tool for generating social ripple maps around their work. And secondly, this is another touch point that connects Park to the singularity, this time of the technology sort I talked about earlier, AI, just taking over everything. And it comes to a head with Dogma, a design company that specialized in AI, media, and design research, one particularly interested in influencer marketing. Dogma itself was announced in summer 2019, and with Lost Poets, it feels like Dogma has released its magnum opus. That's it for part one. In part two, we will look in detail at the crypto collections that Park has released over the last 18 months to see what they can tell us before digging deep into the meaning behind what is probably the most significant piece of crypto art ever, the infamous Pixel. You won't want to miss it.